termination letter was already signed before I walked through the door. She had written it the night before, sitting at her glass desk at 11 o'clock in the empty corner office on the 14th floor, the city blurring behind her through rain-streaked windows. She wrote my name at the top in clean black ink, folded it once, and left it in the center of the desk like something she wanted to get over with quickly. I did not know any of that when I stepped into the elevator Tuesday morning with a thermos of bad coffee and my daughter's drawing folded in my shirt pocket. I found out later. My name is Marcus Webb, 36, Senior Structural Analyst at Caldwell Architecture and Design, 14th floor of a glass tower in downtown Portland. 4 years at the firm. 3 under a different director. The 4th under her. I am telling you this from the other side. From a Sunday morning long after everything had been decided, when the only thing left was understanding how it got there. So when I say I did not see it coming, I mean it the way people mean it when they realize, looking back, that they had been staring at the answer the whole time without recognizing it. I raised my daughter alone, Iris, 6 years old at the time, dark eyes, a habit of chewing pen caps when she was thinking, a laugh that filled whatever room she was in. Her mother left when Iris was 18 months old. No fight, just a note on the kitchen counter and a duffel bag that had been packed. I later realized, for weeks, I kept the apartment, I kept the job, I kept Iris. That was the entire list. The silver chain was not on that list, but it stayed anyway. It had belonged to my father. A plain sterling link with a small rectangular pendant, brushed flat on one side, engraved on the other with 3 initials too small to read unless you held it close. RLW. Raymond Lewis Webb. He had worn it every day of his adult life. When he died, it came to me in a small envelope from the hospital along with his watch and a pocket comb. I lost the comb immediately. The chain I looped around my neck the morning of his funeral and never took off. For years later, it was still there, visible sometimes when I forgot to button the top 2 buttons and leaned over a drawing table. Nobody ever asked about it. Iris called it Grandpa's necklace. When she was small enough that I carried her, she would wrap her fingers around it while she fell asleep. The kind of detail you carry with you everywhere after that, whether you are trying to or not. Her name was Nora Caldwell, 33. She had taken over the firm from her father 18 months earlier after he stepped back for health reasons nobody at the office discussed directly. Before that, she ran the London satellite office for 3 years. Before that, 2 postgraduate degrees. Before that, a reputation for improving every room she entered while making everyone in it feel mildly inadequate without ever raising her voice. Dark hair always pulled back at the office. Sharp features. A stillness in meetings that other people mistook for coldness, but I had watched people work under pressure long enough to recognize it as concentration. Same style of clothing every week. Dark blazer, clean lines, flat shoes. No jewelry except small gold studs and a thin watch she only checked when she had already decided a meeting was running long. We did not have a personal relationship. We had a professional one. She reviewed my reports. I revised them when she found problems. She gave direct feedback without softening it. I gave direct responses without taking them personally. It worked because neither of us pretended it was anything other than what it was. That is what I told myself. The trouble with professional efficiency is that it creates intimacy quietly, the way water gets into a wall. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just slowly, over shared late nights and difficult client calls and the small moments where one person's composure holds the room and the other person notices without meaning to. I noticed more than I meant to. I will admit that now. The Tuesday it happened started the same as every Tuesday. Dropped Iris at school at 7:40. Her lunch packed. The drawing was in my shirt pocket because she had pressed it into my hand at the door. The 2 of us at the beach in crayon, even though neither of us had been to the beach in over a year. I put it in the only pocket I trusted not to wreck it. I was at my desk by 8:15. At 8:40, her assistant knocked on my open door. Nora wanted to see me at 9. That was unusual. Standard reviews were Tuesday afternoons. I straightened my folders, went up to the corner office 4 minutes early. The letter was already on the desk. She was standing at the window with her back to me, her left hand at her side, her right holding her own wrist lightly. The city behind her was white and flat with cloud cover. Rain moving in off the coast. Marcus. She said it without turning. I looked at the letter, saw my name, saw her signature at the bottom. Sit down. Her voice was even. Always even. I stayed standing. She turned. Her face was composed, but underneath it something was tight and careful. The way a person looks when they have rehearsed a conversation and the other person has already broken the script. I need to let you go. Effective today. I stared at her. The white sky was bright behind her. I could feel the drawing in my shirt pocket pressing against my ribs. But came out as a statement. Budget restructuring, she said. The Harmon project has been scaled back. We are eliminating one senior analyst position. There were 3 senior analysts on the 14th floor. I knew their work. I had looked at their projects alongside mine for 4 years. I was the most expensive. That was the reason in the letter. Operational cost reduction. Redundancy in the senior tier. A sentence about my contributions being valued. The standard language that meant none of it was personal and therefore none of it required further explanation. I picked up the letter. Read it through once. She watched me read it. The room was quiet enough that I could hear the rain starting against the glass behind her. I folded it along the same crease and put it in my jacket pocket. She looked at me like she expected something more. I had quite a lot to say, but I had a daughter who had packed her own lunch for the first time that morning, crooked-lidded thermos and all, with a careful pride that hit me underneath my sternum. I was not going to say the things in my head in this office. I will clean out my desk this afternoon, I said. She nodded. Her hands were at her sides, very still. I left. I sat at my desk for a few minutes without turning the monitor on. One junior architect walked past, saw my face and kept walking. That was the right call. At the time, I thought the story ended there. For years of careful work, the best structural project of my career still half finished on the server, and a woman who had made a decision the night before in an empty office while I was putting my daughter to bed 3 miles away. I had no idea what she had been carrying when she made it. I found that out 6 days later. 6 days later, I was in the parking lot of Iris's school at 4 in the afternoon, sitting on the hood of my car waiting for dismissal, when a silver SUV pulled 3 spots down and an older man got out moving carefully, the way people move when their body has recently reminded them it is not cooperating. Tall, or he had been, the architecture of it still in his shoulders. Gray hair, a quiet face that had once been more angular, a coat that had probably fit him better the last time he wore it regularly. He saw me watching and nodded the way strangers nod in school parking lots. Then his eyes dropped to my collar, to the chain visible above the second button I had left open. He went still, not nervous still, recognition still. He walked over, directly. I know that chain, he said. I looked at him, the pendant on the back. 3 initials. He paused. RLW. I held very still. Your father was Ray Webb. He said it quietly, like he was confirming something he had hoped was true. Yes. He let out a breath. Looked at the chain with an expression I did not have a word for right away. Not grief. More like finding something you had stopped expecting to find. My name is Arthur Caldwell. The name landed twice. Once when he said it. Once when it arrived somewhere behind my ears where things go when they are too large to process immediately. Caldwell Architecture, I said. He looked at me carefully. My firm. Yes. The bell rang. Children started coming through the double doors. I would like to talk to you, he said. He took a card from his coat pocket and held it out. Just his name and a number. I took it. Iris appeared at the top of the steps and raised one hand in the kind of wave that is also a declaration. I raised mine back. She came down with her backpack pulling her backward and her lunch bag swinging. Arthur Caldwell watched her come toward us. Something crossed his face I did not understand yet. Pretty girl, he said. She has her own opinions, I said. Something close to a laugh. He walked back to his car. I watched him go. Iris arrived and grabbed my hand and began explaining how she had resolved a disagreement at recess using logic, with a seriousness that made it very difficult not to smile. I called the number that evening after she was asleep. When can you come by, he said, instead of hello. I went to his house Thursday morning, a craftsman on a quiet street in the West Hills. The garden was overgrown in a way that suggested someone had loved it until recently and then stopped being able to keep up. He brought me into a sitting room with bookshelves on 3 walls and 2 chairs worn comfortable from years of use. A photograph on the side table, a woman I did not recognize and a younger Arthur Caldwell on what looked like a job site, open sky behind them. He poured coffee without asking if I wanted it. Raymond Webb, he said. We worked together for 11 years. He was the best structural engineer I have ever known. He left in 1998, Arthur said. We disagreed about direction. He wanted civic projects. I was chasing commercial contracts. Neither of us was wrong. He went his own way. I stayed mine. He looked at his coffee. I kept track of him for a while. Then I got busy. Then too much time had passed to make a call feel natural. That is a poor reason to let someone disappear from your life. I heard he died, he said. I did not send a note. I am not proud of that. I did not say anything. Nothing helped. I did not know he had a son in the field. I was hired 4 years ago, I said. By your previous director. He nodded slowly. I stepped back 18 months ago. Hart required some persuading to behave. Your daughter took over the firm. Yes. He said her name the way fathers say the names of children they are proud of and worried about in equal measure. Nora. She is very capable. Carries everything by herself. Always has. Even when she was small, she did not like asking for help. I used to think it was a strength. Now I think it is just a way of being lonely that looks organized. I looked at my hands. She let me go 6 days ago, I said. He looked up. Budget restructuring. Harmon project scaled back. I was the senior analyst cut. His jaw tightened once, then released. She did not tell me. No reason she would have. It was her decision. He looked at the photograph on the side table. The job site, the open sky, the younger version of himself. Why did she cut that project? I asked. He looked at me. Because the client pulled back. Structural concerns in the preliminary review. Concerns that were, as I understand it, addressed in the revised report. The one that would have been yours. I stared at him. That report was submitted 3 weeks ago. He nodded. That report cleared the structural concerns, I said. I walked the site myself. Twice. I know, he said. I read it. After the fact. The client withdrew before reading the full revision. Nora did not know that when she made the staffing decision. By the time she found out, the paperwork had gone through. I thought about the letter on the desk. Her back to the window. Hands very still at her sides when she said effective today. She knows now, I said. She found out after. That would be my assumption, yes. I stood up. Why did you want to meet me? I asked. He crossed to the bookshelf and picked something up from the second shelf. Turned it over and held it out. A small photograph. My father. Younger than I had ever known him. Hard hat pushed back on his head. A grin I recognized because Iris had it. Standing beside a younger Arthur Caldwell. Both squinting into the sun. I held it without speaking. Because I owe your father a debt I cannot pay, Arthur said. And I have been reading your reports for 4 years without you knowing. I was not the one who hired you, but I was the reason you were hired. Before I stepped back, I made one phone call. Anonymous. Nora deserved to run the firm her own way. But when I saw Raymond Webb's son had applied, I made that call. He looked at me carefully. I am telling you because you deserve to know, not because I want anything from it. He handed the photograph back to the shelf, facing out. One more thing, he said. Nora has been trying to reach you for 4 days. She had not called my cell phone. She had called my office extension. Deactivated. Emailed my work address. Deactivated the same day. Left a message with the receptionist, who wrote it on a slip of paper and left it on my desk, which was now someone else's desk, which meant the slip was in a recycling bin somewhere I no longer had access to. For days. Failing in every direction. I sat in my car outside Arthur's house with rain on the windshield and Iris's drawing clipped to the sun visor. The two of us at the beach in crayon, hands connected in the gap between us. I thought about what Arthur had said, that she carries everything by herself and it looks organized from the outside. I thought about 4 years of reports and site visits and the quiet that settles in a room when two people are both trying to be professional about something that stopped being only professional somewhere along the way. Then I drove to the office. The receptionist looked at my visitor badge like a math problem. I asked for 5 minutes with the director. She picked up the phone. There was a pause long enough that I thought the answer would be no. Then, 14th floor. She handed me a visitor lanyard. Nora was standing when I got there. Not at the window. At the edge of her desk. Arms crossed. Composure working hard. Papers spread behind her in the pulled apart and reassembled way that said she had been working through something difficult. She looked at the silver chain before she looked at my face. Just for a second. Then up. I was trying to reach you. I heard. The work address was all I had. Said with a clipped frustration aimed more at herself than at me. I know. The composure slipped. Not dramatically. Just a loosening around the edges the way a held breath releases. She sat on the edge of the desk. The client reinstated the project. Full scope. They read the revised structural report 2 days after I handed you that letter. She stopped. The structural concerns you addressed were the reason they came back. She looked at her hands. That report was yours. I know. I walked that site twice. She was quiet a moment. I made the decision before I had all the information. I thought the project was dead. I thought the cost reduction was necessary. By the time I knew differently, the paperwork was through. I stood in the same doorway I had walked out of 6 days ago. I want to offer you the position back, she said. I looked at her face. There was nothing in it that was performance. Just the careful steadiness of a person saying a true thing and waiting to see what it costs them. I should have come to you first. Before I made the decision. I should have told you the project situation directly and asked for your assessment. I did not. That was wrong. I had not expected a real apology. The kind that does not reach for an excuse at the end. I looked at the papers on her desk. At the city through the rain-blurred glass. Why were you trying to reach me? I asked. Really? She was quiet. Long enough that the question settled between us and became something different from what it had been when I asked it. Because, she said carefully, the work reason was one thing. And there was also another reason. She reached to the desk and set something small on the edge nearest to me. A photograph. Small, printed on plain paper, slightly smudged at one edge. A job site somewhere in the early 90s. 2 men in hard hats squinting into the sun. One of them was my father. The back of my throat went tight in a specific way I recognized from 8 years ago. My father showed it to me last week, she said, when he told me who you were. She looked at my face as I looked at the photograph. I grew up hearing about Raymond Webb, she said. The best structural mind my father ever worked with. The one he did not stay in touch with. The one he never called. I picked up the photograph. Held it the way you hold something smaller than what it contains. I terminated the son of the man my father considered the finest engineer he ever knew, she said. Because I did not have enough information. Because I was moving fast. And because I have a habit of solving problems by myself before I verify whether the problem is actually what I think it is. The rain was coming down steadily behind her. A long, quiet Portland rain that had nowhere to be. I said, your father told me you carry everything by yourself. She looked at me, her arms uncrossed, hands flat on the desk behind her. He would know, she said quietly. I came back to the 14th floor on a Monday. Nobody made a speech. The Harmon project files were back on my workstation. The junior architect covering my load gave me a look of genuine relief and went back to her drawings without another word. That was its own welcome. We worked. She directed. The floor ran the way it always had, cleanly, with the quiet focus of people who are good at what they do and know it without needing to say so. But something was different. Not between us exactly. Between me and the way I understood her. I watched her in the weekly review and saw it now, what Arthur had described. The way she caught errors in other people's work and corrected them quietly, in document margins, without calling attention to the correction. The way she stepped into the hallway after a difficult client call and stood with her palm flat against the glass wall and her eyes closed for exactly 4 seconds before walking back in. That was not coldness. That was someone who had decided long ago that the cost of being seen as anything less than fully capable was too high, and had been paying that cost in a different currency ever since. One Thursday evening, about 3 weeks after I came back, I stayed late finishing the Harmon load analysis. The floor had cleared out by 7. By 7:30 it was just me and the hum of the building and the city coming up through the glass. And her. She came out of the corner office at 7:45, jacket over one arm, already in motion. Then she saw me and stopped. You are still here. Harmon deadline is Friday. She looked at my screen. Then at the chain at my collar, the way she occasionally did now, briefly, without entirely meaning to. She came over. She did not ask. She set her things on the empty desk beside mine and looked at the load distribution I was running. This anchor point, she said. East wall. Wind shear loading in this configuration. You will want to address that before Friday. She was right. I had been going to catch it on the next pass. But she had caught it first. We worked for an hour, side by side. The floor was quiet and close at that hour, the work feeling more real than it does during the day when everyone is performing competence for the room. Just two people and a structural problem and the rain starting again outside. At 9, she leaned back in the borrowed chair and looked at the revised model. "That is better," she said. "Yes." She looked at the chain again. Then, carefully, "Can I ask about it?" "It was my father's." She nodded, like she had expected that. "I wear it," I said, and then I stopped because she had asked and it seemed right to give her the real answer instead of the short one. "I wear it because some mornings are harder than others. And having it there is like having someone in my corner who already knows how things turn out." She did not say anything for a moment. Rain moved across the glass. The city blurred softly behind it. "My father has a photograph of your father on his bookshelf," she said. "Talks about him like they never stopped being close. Even after 30 years. "I know. He showed it to me. I think that is the thing my father is most sorry about," she said. "Not the business disagreement. Just not making the call." "There are a lot of things that come down to not making the call," I said. She looked at me. Something in her face shifted, small and careful, the way light changes when a cloud moves. "Yes," she said. "There are." We sat in the quiet of the emptied floor with the rain on the glass and the city below us and everything unsaid in 4 years still taking up its particular amount of space in the room. Then she said, "Would you have dinner with me?" Not as a professional courtesy. She said it with a slight deliberateness, making sure the distinction landed. Because I think I have been reading the reports of a man I would have liked to actually know, and I kept calling it professional respect when it was something else. I looked at her face, the careful composure, the thing underneath it she was choosing right now to let be visible. I said, "I have a daughter, 6 years old. She has strong opinions and will interrogate you about your favorite color at some point." A very small smile, the kind she did not give often. "I can handle an interrogation," she said. "She is relentless," I said. "Fair warning." Nora looked at the rain-streaked glass, the lights shifting in the water on the window. "I think I can manage relentless," she said. Her favorite color was blue. Iris accepted this after a brief cross-examination and ruled her satisfactory. That was 4 months after the Thursday night at the office. By then, things had shifted the way they shift when two people stop pretending they are something simpler than they are. Quietly, without announcement. The way a room gets warmer when someone opens a vent they forgot was closed. Nora was not easy. I want to say that plainly. She had years of carrying everything alone built into the way she moved through the world. And she did not shed that because of a dinner or two or a Saturday morning where Iris talked at her for 40 minutes about deep-sea fish. It was slower than that. A question answered honestly instead of deflected. A problem brought to me before she had already solved it, just once, to see what happened. A day she called from a client meeting going sideways and asked for an opinion from someone who would tell her the truth. One evening she came for dinner at our apartment. Small place near the school, practical, with a kitchen table that had one leg slightly shorter than the others and a stack of Iris's drawings tacked to the refrigerator with state-shaped magnets. Nora looked at the drawings for a long time while I finished cooking. She reached out and touched the edge of one with one finger. The one of me and Iris at the beach. The same one that had been in my shirt pocket the morning she handed me the letter. I noticed it was the same one I said from the stove. She turned. "I had it in my pocket that day," I said. "She made it for me that morning." Nora looked at the drawing. Then at me. "I did not know that." "I know." She was quiet with her hand still near the drawing. Then, "I am sorry. Not for the first time. But differently, the way people apologize when the words have worked their way further in than the first version of themselves." "I know," I said, and meant it differently too. Arthur came for dinner 2 weeks after that. He sat at the table with the short leg and helped Iris with her arithmetic and told her stories about job sites from 40 years ago that she received with the gravity of someone preserving history. At one point he looked across the table at me, the chain visible at my collar, and something passed across his face that was not quite a smile but was close to what a smile is made of. He stayed until 9. Iris fell asleep on the couch before he left, which was how he ended up carrying her to bed without being asked. Carefully, with the same deliberateness he moved with everywhere, and coming back out to find me in the kitchen. He said, "Ray would have liked this very much." I looked at the refrigerator, the drawings, the state magnets. "I think so too," I said. At the door, Nora said she should have called him more while he was recovering. He looked at her the way fathers look at children when the apology finally comes out right. You were running the firm. That was the job. I still should have called. He put one hand on her shoulder briefly, the way people do when they do not have the right words and do not want to use the wrong ones. You can call now, he said. He looked at her. You can call. After he left, she stood by the window looking at the street. Rain had stopped. The city doing that thing it does when every streetlight doubles in the wet road below. I stood beside her. I am not going to be easy at this, she said. Neither am I. I have a 6-year-old who runs her own court of appeals, and I work late when deadlines are close, and I do not always say the thing I am thinking when I should. She looked at me sideways. And I have worn the same silver chain for 8 years, I said. And I will probably wear it for the rest of my life. She reached over and touched it. The pendant. Briefly. 2 fingers. The way Iris used to when she was small. Then she lowered her hand. Good, she said. Quietly. Almost to herself. Like a thing she had been needing to say for a while and had finally found the right time for. I know where to find you now. I understood exactly what she meant. I have thought about the sequence of it many times since. A man works at a desk for 4 years and tells himself he understands the shape of the thing. He understands the work. He understands the professional distance. He tells himself he is being disciplined, watching the line between useful and complicated, staying on the right side of it because that is the responsible thing. Then a letter gets folded and left on a desk. A silver chain catches the light in a school parking lot. A man who should have made a phone call 30 years ago finally makes one. And the sequence you thought you understood turns out to be a different shape entirely when you look at it from the other end. My father used to say the best structures are the ones that look like they are doing nothing. No drama in them. No visible effort. Just weight and balance and a quiet presence that holds everything up without asking to be noticed. He wore this chain the same way. I wear it the same way now. Some mornings I catch Nora looking at it the way people look at things they have decided to keep. Not possessively. Just with a quiet recognition that says I know what this is and I am not going anywhere. That is enough. That is more than enough. Iris has 4 drawings of the 3 of us on the refrigerator now. In one of them, the chain is visible. A small looping line of silver at my collar. She drew it deliberately. I asked her why. Because it is always there, she said. Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. She was right. Some things stay because they are supposed to. Some people show up at the right moment because the moment was already waiting, without anyone knowing it was there. Arthur made a call. My father kept the chain. Iris handed me a drawing on a Tuesday morning before everything changed, and I put it in the pocket closest to my chest. Now I know why.